What's good with it, Black Ghost? I'm at the crib now, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting ready to get on this live grind real quick, but I wanted to make this last video. It's going to be a quick one. It's something I don't see a lot of people talk about, so I just want to go ahead and put this out into the air, you know what I'm saying? And basically it's a question slash convo slash let me hear your opinion on it. Dominic Breazeale. If you heard in the news, Dominic Breazeale did delete his Instagram. Not only did he delete his Instagram, but if you watch the fight, the aftermath of the Deontay Wilder-Dominic Breazeale fight, he also did not take the post-fight interview for very good reason, of course. In that very moment when Jim Gray was talking to Deontay Wilder, he disrespected Dominic Breazeale, which I didn't think was right. So Breazeale chose not to have that post-fight interview because of that. But he was still very respectful, went over Deontay Wilder, said his piece, hugged it out, and everything was good like a true warrior does. So respect to him for doing that. But, you know, I always like to... But before I say that, me personally, I always think about these type of fights, and not necessarily about the person who wins, but more so about the one who loses. Now, what I mean by that is, so in fights like these, where you have such a big A side like a Deontay Wilder, or even the Anthony Joshua fight coming up, everyone and their mama knows, because it's boxing, this is how boxing goes, that the promotion, management, the network, all these things, you know what I'm saying, that's basically putting together this event and generating money, they're all in favor of one fighter, right? And it's obvious it was Deontay Wilder. You know, that's not a surprise to anyone when it comes to a fighter at the level that Wilder is, not necessarily skill-based, but popularity-wise, whatever management he's under, whatever promotional company he's under, whatever network he's under, they're going to put as much money into him because they can get the most money back from it, right? It's just business. But obviously that means there's always going to be a man on the other side of that ring, because it takes two to tango, who's basically being looked at as basically a doormat. You know what I'm saying? If you listen to what Jim Gray said in his post-fight interview, a guy who's been doing it forever, what he said wasn't a mistake. The way he disregarded Dominic Breazeale like he wasn't nothing, right after that man got KO'd brutally in front of his family, for him to just disrespect him the way he did and to say the comments that he said, look, it's boxing. That's how it goes. But it also shows you the lack, the lack of emotion towards the actual fighters in that position who aren't making any who aren't making any money for the promotion, which is wild, because without him being in the ring, there would be no fight, right? How many people want to fight Wilder, right? Not too many. But you had someone like Dominic Breazeale, who was game and actually believed he was going to win, took an L, unfortunately, and for him to be disregarded the way he was, it just goes to show you what boxing is, how brutal of a sport it is. If you're not that top 1%, you know what I'm saying, no one's going to ride with you. It's you, yourself, and nobody else. You know what I'm saying? You got your trainer who believes in you, but even then, if you're talking about a guy like Dominic Breazeale, who has a guy like Breazeale in his corner, who is obviously a legend in the sport when it comes to training, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure, Breazeale has been there, done that, has so many pro fighters. He knew what was going to happen. He knew what the game was, so it was all just about making sure that he was mentally prepared. If you look at some of the pre-fight interviews, Breazeale said one of the key aspects for Dominic was his mentality. And like, now that I see it, I think Breazeale was kind of foreshadowing. He was hoping that his mentality was going to be strong enough to overcome either getting dropped and getting back up, or if he does end up losing by a knockout, his mentality is what's going to keep him going. So anyways, I kind of got off into a tangent. What I'm trying to talk about is, where does Dominic Breazeale go from here, right? You're talking about a guy who's relatively young when it comes to the heavyweight division. He didn't really have a name before his Deontay Wilder fight. Now he somewhat does, but not for the right reasons. Very similar to Sterving after he took that brutal knockout loss to Deontay Wilder, right? Think about this. When Sterving went 12 rounds with Wilder, didn't even get dropped, gave him a very good fight. No one knew about Sterving still. When he had the second fight, he got absolutely destroyed and obliterated. People knew about Sterving, but not in a good way. So it's the same thing for Breazeale. Breazeale fought Anthony Joshua, went 7 rounds with him, ultimately got TKO'd, but put up a very good fight. People weren't checking for him, right? Now that he got absolutely obliterated for Deontay Wilder, people are checking for him so much in a negative way that he deleted his Instagram. So it makes me ask the question, because this is where I become less of a boxing fan and more I put myself in the shoes of the fighters. Not saying I am a fighter, but it has to be rough, man. Especially for a guy like Breazeale. I truly believe he thought, if he didn't think he could win, I truly believe he thought he was going to be able to give Wilder one of the biggest tests of his life. I truly believe he thought that. And for him to go out the way he did, because no one expected him to go out the way he did. Everyone expected him to get smoked. But like that was, it was bad. So, you know, for that to happen, you know, where does he go? Does he become a journeyman boxer? Does he become like something like a David Price in a sense? You know, does Al Heyman just completely sweep him under the rug? The thing about Sterving, if you haven't been following him, he got that fight with Deontay Wilder, another chance at the belt when he shouldn't have gotten it. That was because of his promoter, his Don King. Don King tends to be able to get his fighters random random title fights, right? And then after that fight that he got ridiculously smoked by, he was able to come back and fight Joe Joyce for another title. He did get knocked out, but I'm just saying, Sterving is in a position where Don King can get him certain fights where Sterving won't necessarily train for him at this point, because he obviously understands that he's not going to be able to get another belt. And as a fighter, when you get to that tip-top point and you see that you're not in that top 1% to get the belt, it does something to your brain, especially if you get brutally knocked out. So Sterving realizes that. So basically for the rest of Sterving's career, Don King's probably going to set him up with title fights or title eliminator fights against young guns coming up, basically to make a name for the young guns, you know, i.e. Joe Joyce. So is that the move that's going to end up happening for Dominic Breazeale? Is Al Heyman going to end up ultimately using him as basically a stepping stone for up-and-comers? Does, you know, Breazeale find some type of way to rebound back from this? Unfortunately, this is boxing, so, you know, with 2 losses on your resume and having two shots at the title, you kind of, you know, it's kind of a wrap for you when it comes to your career. But, you know, I just, you know, it really does suck. And for Breazeale to take the chance that he took fighting Wilder, you know, he didn't have to take this fight. He didn't have to do this. Once again, he was a number 4 ranked when it comes to WBC rankings. So he wasn't the mandatory. I don't remember if WBC called him as his mandatory. It might have. If so, then he obviously had to fight Wilder. But either way it goes, Breazeale was in a place where he didn't have to fight Wilder yet, in my personal opinion. If you are going to go by rankings, it should have been White, but you know how the WBC plays its games. But either way it goes, where does Breazeale go from here, man? You know, do you think he'll ever come back? I hope he does, because I think he is a very good fighter, and I think he beats most of the heavyweights if we're excluding about maybe like 7 or 8 of them. And I think at the end of the day, no matter how bad of the knockout was, no matter if, how bad of ridicule he may get from the boxing community, the real hardcore boxing fans, they respect him for even taking that fight, and they respect him for not only going in there and giving it the best he can, but to not only get dropped the way he did, but to get up, salute Deontay Wilder. And there was a statement that came out where Breazeale said he feels like the ref shortened the count, in his opinion. He felt like he should have gave him more time and allowed him to get back up. And I know he's referencing the Tyson Fury fight, because he gave Tyson Fury, you know, Tyson Fury and Breazeale dropped the same exact way. Some could argue the ref gave Fury a little bit more time than Breazeale. Some could argue that Breazeale looked a little bit more out of it than Fury did. Either way it goes, I respect that man for what he did, for being a warrior and putting his life on the line in that ring. Yeah, man, wherever he goes from here, you know, I wish him success, and I wish him blessings, and I'm praying for you and pray for your family. Stay up, man. You're gonna get stronger from here. So salute to Breazeale. And yeah, let's talk about it, man. Where y'all think Dominic Breazeale goes from here? Much love, BlakGooseTV.